had this major sense of FOMO, and I did not want to miss out if the stock was going to go to the moon. What an idiot. Needless to say, the stock began tanking and tanking and tanking all the way down to 0.0010. I'm not really sure what the catalyst was, but somewhere in my 30s, the light switch flipped on in the proverbial upstairs, and I began to understand money in a different way. Yet somehow most people are stuck in this cyclical pattern well into their adult life and never get a hold of their money and never wonder what the future is going to look like if they continue this way. Then after years of working like a dog, having a few kids, and being stuck in a career they hate, they look up and realize they have nothing to show for it except a pile of debt, maybe a mortgage, and no end in sight. This can be a maddening realization for the most poised among us. Have you ever heard the saying, I have more month at the end of my money? Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. In this video, I want to break down the 4 most common mistakes people make with their personal finances and how you can get to financial freedom faster. So I made a lot of mistakes with my personal finances growing up. I spent way too much money in a down payment for a pickup truck just so I could afford the monthly payments. I spent basically every dollar of my paycheck and was wondering why I couldn't get ahead at the end of the month. I just overall spent way too much money trying to impress people that I didn't really care about. But probably the only thing that I did right was, instead of purchasing every single Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit album at a store, I downloaded them on LimeWire or Kazaa. Anyway, when it comes to money, it doesn't really matter how much money you make. It matters how much money you can keep. Part of all you earn is yours to keep. The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a good book. Mistake number 1 is not acknowledging the truth about our finances. Hopefully I'm not the only one in the world with this problem, but the hardest things for me to do are the things that I don't enjoy doing. Or worse, doing something that I'm not good at. Nobody likes sitting down and budgeting or looking at a basic outline of monthly expenses versus income. I know I'm a bit of a sicko now because I actually enjoy a good personal finance book on asset allocation. By the way, have you read The Boglehead's Guide to a 3-Fund Portfolio? It's a good book. I'll link down in the description. Highly recommend. But when my finances were basically non-existent, it was literally the hardest thing in the world to take a minute and acknowledge where I was at. For example, working out while you're tired or feeling overweight isn't even remotely fun. Everything hurts, exercises feel awkward and uncomfortable. You feel like everyone in the gym is staring at you because you clearly don't belong there. And what's worse is you dragged your butt to the gym and you're paying for this traumatic experience. However, once things start progressing and you're energized by a great chest and tricep workout, you start enjoying it. Things don't hurt, exercises aren't uncomfortable anymore, and people begin to stare at you in a different way at the gym. Unless you're the gym creeper. And if you don't know who the gym creeper is, well, it's the same with taking charge of your finances. It's awkward and uncomfortable at first, but once you can get over that hump of it being clunky and annoying, it actually can become quite enjoyable to take a check-in every now and then. The problem for me now is to not tinker with it. Don't do something, just stand there, Jack Vogel. The second mistake we make is buying into the hype. Everyone has a story about a hot stock tip that they thought would go sky high. Well, shortly after I started investing, I learned about penny stocks, and I had this great new company that I thought was going to be the next Amazon of commercial software. So luckily I followed the 5 to 10% rule of your overall invested assets being like fun money. So I put a couple $100s into this stock at 50 cents a share, and the stock went to $2.75. Now, in a perfect world, I would have sold, taken my profits, and went on with my life. But of course, I left my money in there thinking, what if it goes to $5? What if it goes to $500? I had this major sense of FOMO, and I did not want to miss out. Needless to say, the stock began tanking and tanking and tanking and tanking all the way down to 0.0010. It was at that point that I decided I did not want to go through the mental stress of it all. It just was not worth it. I could tell you story after story of friends that invested money and lost massive sums thinking that this company was going to go through the roof. I have a friend in New York City that was trading oil and lost $300,000 on an oil company bet. Now, I learned two important lessons from the previous experience. The first lesson I learned is that emerging technologies are speculative investments in general. That means they're risky. Just think about the thousands of e-commerce companies that were started in the 1990s, only to have Amazon emerge as one of the few that survived the dot-com bubble. It's easy to find yourself saying things like, what if I invested in Amazon back in 1999? But in the 1990s, Amazon would have been a really speculative investment and exceedingly hard to identify in the sea of other e-commerce startups at the time. The second thing that I learned from this experience is that past performance is no indication of future results. Just because a company's stock chart has been doing well doesn't mean it's going to continue to do so in the future, unless the company has intrinsic value. Let's take Isaac Newton, for example. He's probably one of the smartest people in history and one of the greatest mathematicians to have ever lived. In 1720, Sir Isaac made an enormous bet on the South Sea Company, which crashed shortly thereafter he invested his fortune. Adjusted for inflation, Sir Isaac Newton lost about $3 million just on this one trade. After he lost his fortune, he famously said, "I can calculate the movement of the stars, but not the madness of men." Newton essentially bought these shares at all-time highs, and the stock has lost value ever since he bought them. Investors have been making the same mistake for centuries. When I look back over my investing mistakes, it had a lot of parallels with Isaac Newton. Basically, it involves getting emotional with the fear of missing out and putting money into something I didn't fully understand, and then praying the stock price would go up after buying the shares. Then we scratch our heads and wonder why it hasn't skyrocketed like we hoped. We are humans, and having human emotions is just a part of who we are. But when it comes to investing, we need to remove these emotions because they can influence us to do dangerous things. The third mistake we make is leasing a luxury lifestyle. Seeing all of our friends in brand new cars can definitely get inside your head. Things to ask yourself when making a purchase. Number one, can I actually afford this purchase? If you need to put it on a credit card, then the answer is no. Number two, am I making this purchase for myself or to impress others? Number three, can I live without this item for another year? Number four, do I really need the top of the line version? There are countless ways to buy something at a discount. Try checking Craigslist or eBay. These are some of my favorite places to buy discount things. The bottom line is that people often spend money that they don't have to try to prove something to the world, that they're successful, that they mean something, that they have validation in this world. I'd rather sleep on an IKEA mattress than lease a lifestyle that I can't actually afford. And finally, the fourth mistake that we make is not using all of the investment accounts available to us. When I moved back home in my early 20s and transferred out of one of my first jobs, I cashed out of my 401k. I know. On top of that, I had to pay taxes and an early withdrawal penalty. I simply didn't know what I was doing. This was a huge mistake. Don't do this like I did. I didn't have a clue about the power of compounding. Almost everyone can open a Roth IRA. Seriously, if you haven't done this yet, please click off this video and go on Vanguard and open a Roth IRA. I'll wait. Once you have that situated, I want to make sure that you're enrolled in your employer's 401k or 403b retirement plan. Go to your HR department and set up automatic investments before you can get your paws on that money. I did an entire video on investment accounts that I'll link in the description below. The ultimate guide for investment accounts. There's also an account in there that I don't think you knew about. Go ahead and check it out. If I could leave you with one thing today, it's that your self-worth is not tied to your net worth. If you're not doing well right now, or maybe you have a negative net worth because of student loans or poor financial decisions like I made, this is not an indication that you're a bad person or you're a dumb person. If I can get my financial crap together, you can get your financial situation together. It really does take small steps in the right direction. And by watching this video, you're taking a small step. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you liked my beard. I'm thinking of keeping it. Have a great day.